Today's guest is someone I've been dreaming to have on. She started as a Division One swimmer at the University of Michigan and went on to become an Olympic swimmer. And now she's navigating what comes after one of the biggest moments of her life. We're going to be talking about her journey towards the Olympics, obviously the Olympic Village Tea, being a woman in a male dominated space and starting over and finding your purpose again. So, Jamie, welcome to Tea Time with Janice.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Janice. Nice to
Thank you
see
so
you.
much for tuning in from Switzerland at night. This is amazing. It's really good to have you.
Um,
So before we get started, I always try to find a tea that pairs well with the conversation we're having, and today I picked matcha. Do you like matcha?
yeah, I like matcha.
Okay, okay. Well, it's a tea that's rooted in discipline and intention, which is what I think you need when you're chasing big dreams and reinventing yourself and finding your purpose again. So I hope that it's a good one. It also is from Japan, which is kind of representative of the Tokyo Olympics, I guess.
Yeah, what a coincidence.
I
Or
just
not.
thought of that. I just thought of that. Okay, so I want to get started. And I think the how I want to get started is I have to say this for my own ego, but I think one of my proudest accomplishments in my life has probably been being co-captains with you on our high school swim team.
Oh my God, no way.
Yeah, because I
I
think
almost
that's
forgot that. Wow.
yeah. See, that's the beginning of your story, or even the middle, but that's probably the closest I'll ever come to going to the Olympics. So, yeah, like I said, that was the end of my high school or my competitive swim career, but obviously it was maybe not the beginning, but the middle. Do you
Yeah.
want to tell me how you got into swimming? Where did it all start?
Yeah, sure, thanks. It started when my mom, who loves swimming, brought me to swim just for fun and for survival skills. And so, being a kid in Hong Kong, you're exposed to many different activities, and definitely swimming was one of them. And I never really gotten into it until really when I joined Stingrays when I was maybe 8 or 9 years old. Uh, Before that, we had competitions in primary school, like inter-house competitions, where I had twice stopped in the middle of the pool when I swam in a competition. And so going from that when I was like first and second grade to joining Stingrays, that's when I really started like loving it. And it was only because I could hang out with friends and hang out during practice and yap. Well, yap is a now term, but chat and play.
How do
And
you
that's
even
when I
chat in
fell
the
in love.
water though? Like you can't. I felt like swimming was such a lonely sport. I would be talking to myself underwater.
In between sets. And that's why maybe that's why I got yelled at a lot. Maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, doing kickboard exercises was my favorite because then you can yap with your friends like they're next to
Exactly.
you, and that was really fun. Why did you stop in the middle of the pool twice?
I think it's a mix of like anxiety. I was like anxious, so I like didn't couldn't breathe in the middle and I just stopped and cried. I think that happened twice and
That's how I feel doing
somehow
butterfly.
yeah.
I just want to stop. I just want to hold on to the wall for dear life. Um, how did you go from like thinking swimming was a fun social activity then to saying, okay, I want to go to the Olympics?
Wow, I think it took many years, many years. The changing point was probably my first big international meet in 2013 and 2014. The Asian Youth Games, the Youth Olympics, and Asian Games, where I was exposed to the junior international scene and saw kind of my time drops that made me really excited and also allowed me to commit to a really prestigious swimming academic university, which I never dreamt of, you know. So having that time drop and exposure opened up my mind to be like having Olympics as a possibility. And that I was like 17 probably.
So you never considered it while you were in high school until basically the very last year.
Yeah. Yes.
And you always just swam competitively. Like Jamie was the top swimmer and everybody looked up to her. I mean, I did. And like it was it was crazy because we would train and you would be split up into different levels and put into different lanes. And you were always in the first lane because you were the top level. And every time I would see Jamie, like the coach would be cheering for her, whistling at her, and that's crazy to me that back then you never considered going to the Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, I had a few teammates and Richard, if you remember, who really thought my teammates Kiki and Bridget were up for the Olympics. And yeah, I mean, I paid attention to 2012 London. I saw the races, I was really excited, but I didn't think I was really close to that level really yet. And I still enjoyed it, but my goal was okay, let's try to swim in college first and see what happens. But as I said, the three events, international events, really opened up my perspective and thought about, hey, maybe one day I could aim for the Olympics.
I really love that. And I really love what you said about how growing up in Hong Kong or in Asia, I feel like a really nice way to say it is that we are exposed to a lot of things. My dad signed me up for every single sport just so that I could find the one that works for me. And it ended up, I didn't even like swimming, but my grandpa was a national swimmer too for Taiwan.
Wow.
And
Wow, I didn't
yeah,
know
well, I
that.
mean, I didn't really live up to that, but he taught me how to swim. And I always thought it was interesting that like we went to an international school, so we were raised with Western values, but we grew up in Asia, so we also had Asian values. Did that ever shape the way you dream?
I would say yes and no. I mean, my family is pretty Chinese, like traditional values. I went to local school before attending high school at HKIS. And so I was always allowed the freedom to kind of dream of whatever I wanted to do. That was my family motto. But at the same time, being like very responsible and doing everything by the book, you know, step by step. And so I would say it's a 50-50. Being in HKIS definitely opened up more perspective on what my new classmates did. You know, they had different goals and different dreams. But ultimately, I think growing up in Hong Kong, it was just so diverse and I was influenced by so many different culture that I to this day I think I'm really half half
Same.
on how I think. Some things I'm very Asian valued, some things I'm more liberal or more Western open minded about. So um, I think that allowed me to just think about, okay, maybe one day the Olympic dream can come true.
I think that that's very practical of you to think about it in small steps, you know, like growing up in the Asian culture, I think people look at careers and look at success as how much money do you make and which job makes the most money. So that's like being, you know, a doctor, a lawyer, or somebody in
Yeah.
finance. And the Olympics is like is a dream. And I think it's really interesting that you kind of only thought about that when you were 17 because you're like, okay, well, is it practical? Like, are my times getting there? And then once your times are at the Asian Games, you're like, oh, maybe I can consider it. But you didn't
Yeah.
start swimming when you were young, being like, I'm gonna go to the Olympics.
No, not at all. Yeah. I don't know. It's yeah, I guess it's a bit of a practicality, but also like to your point, I'm just gonna jump in for a little comment here is that ultimately when my family like allowed me to do whatever I wanted, dream whatever I wanted, it was still very structured as in we know that there's not a big chance that I will make money off of being an Olympic swimmer. And that is why academics is so important. You know, you've got to be doing both all the time. And that's why I'm saying it's very 50-50.
How did
Always have a
you
backup.
No, okay, I like that, and I also think I wonder, is it really sustainable to be, a professional swimmer as your career? Like, do you get paid a lot for that?
So in recent years, it's better. Since I think after I graduated in 2019, they opened up the image likeness clause for collegiate swimmers so that they can get paid for who they are. So that opened up a bit of opportunity. Um, Previously in the swimming space, there weren't a lot of professional leagues.
Okay.
It's funny because I work in the federation now, and we're really trying to incentivize like monetarily for these top athletes to come to different events and increase the prize money. But we're not a revenue generating sport like football, basketball. So realistically, like unless you're really, really, really good, like the top of the top, you're not going to be able to have a living out of it, at least not for too long. But I would say nowadays, maybe you can go for being a professional athlete with, given the support you have, the resources around you, you can go till probably 30 years old.
That's not that long. That's not that long, like, you would have to save so much money to be ordered to live from 30 to, I don't know, let's say 100 years old with whatever you made for 8 years. Um,
Yeah.
it's also tough because I feel like then what's really important is you need to focus on your school, your education, but also being successful in the corporate side. And that's really hard to do when you're training for so long and dedicating so much time and energy to it. Like, how did you transition from, going to high school where you have a mix of levels of swimmers, but then you can also balance school, to now swimming at the University of Michigan, be a D1 athlete, swimming at the top of the top, and then also now having to get your bachelor's degree, which I think you have in economics and entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
What was that transition like? How did you do it all?
Wow. I don't know. I mean, I have to give credit to HKIS, I would say, or just Hong Kong high school scene in general, because I don't think we had it that easy.
No.
We had a vigorous schedule, and free lesson was nice, but it wasn't like college where you can kind of arrange your schedule a bit better so that you get time to rest or do your homework or study. Um, so in terms of like academically, it was I was just really fortunate that it was not too big of a shock, and we had support from the school, as in athletes can pick classes first, before other before other students, so that it matches with our training schedule. And then for big classes, let's say intro classes, they would offer tutors if you needed one, who are like students who took the class before, upperclassmen who would help us in terms of those courses. So I had really good support, which I'm really like grateful for, which helped the demand of academics. But I guess in terms of like other stuff, like how I transitioned, it was really funny because right before college that summer, I broke my first ever Hong Kong record. It was like shortly broken right after. But anyway, in the two
Still, that's never happened to me before. That's a huge accomplishment. What was it?
it was the 200-meter breaststroke.
Okay.
I did it, yeah, over like right before I went to college. And I
Just a
also got an Olympic.
casual, "Remember me, bye."
Yeah, and I also got a Olympic qualifying um B time, which isn't a automatic qualifying time, but like kind of a better standard that made me really excited for what's to come. So I was actually a bit like arrogant going into school the first week, I would say. Like I'm
Okay.
not even kidding. Like I was not humble enough, let's say, in hindsight. And I didn't realize how training was so different than high school, or even in Hong Kong team when I was at HKS. We had we trained 10 sessions a week. We had 3 lifting gym sessions, which I never really took lifting seriously. I don't know if you remember. I was always just
We call it
yapping and
land
going.
training, but we're just like
Yeah,
literally lying on the mat talking to each other.
exactly. So I went from that to actually holding a barbell, like 3 times a week. And so I was really humbled the first year I was at Michigan. I had the whole year to adapt to the new training, the whole American school culture, living in dorms, eating
Bad food.
cafeteria food. It was kind of tough in terms of that sense, and it was also first time away from home. But that being said, I still really like I don't regret my first year experience, even though it was really challenging, because that really helped me understand what else I can do better or how I can better optimize my time or my training at Michigan. And I just saw myself improve each year when I was there, not just in training, but in performance and also having like knowing the group of friends that I can rely on. That takes time to find as well.
Yeah.
So overall, I was just very, very fortunate that it was a great experience.
Did you, when you went into school, university, were you like the top swimmer?
Not at all. I was a small fish in a big pond.
Really? So they
Yes.
pushed you to be even faster than you were then.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it not really push, but like they try to push everyone, right? Like I had in the same class as me, I had Siobhan Hawkey, which is now a 4-time Olympic medalist, right? And she was way up like higher level, and we had USA team members or junior international medalists. And I was definitely surrounded by like these big fishes. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what I was thinking, but
Was everybody gunning for the Olympics then on the team? Like, did you feel like you were competing with some of the girls as well? Like, you're friends, but you're competing.
actually not really.
Okay.
Some girls definitely wanted that was their dream, but because most of them were Americans and it is just so much more competitive to become an Olympian in the US because usually when you represent the US, you very likely medal at the Olympics. You're that top. The US is the fastest and most successful country in swimming still to this day. And so a lot of my teammates were just trying to reach like maybe other competition goals, do well at our school conference, go to NCAA, the national championship uh, for colleges. And so our goals were pretty different. Yeah. Well, not different, but like in terms of the Olympic dream. Yeah.
Okay. That is really interesting to me because I always thought that people who swam for D1 schools always wanted to go to the Olympics. But it does make sense that because of the competition, maybe you're just doing it to get into school, to stay into school, or just for the love of it, but you're focused on something else.
Yeah, I think there's just a lot more competition that are really important, just not at the like international level. College sport in general in the US is a big game. And so it's not that they don't dream big, it's just they're also pretty realistic on okay, whether or not I can make top 2 in the US, you know, in order to make the Olympic team. But they were still super fast girls and super hardworking, and still an inspiration despite our ultimate goal might be a little different.
Okay. So you talked about kind of like balancing school with making friends and getting used to living in the US and training and all of that, which I personally feel like is really overwhelming because in my first month of school, I already broke down just from moving to a different country and like not having
Oh.
my family and having to make new friends and not knowing the culture, but also like LA that well, whereas some people had family based here and all that. So I think that you're balancing everything. Did you ever feel like because your mind was so focused on balancing it all that you missed out on the traditional college experience?
During college, sometimes maybe I thought about it, but I was able to find a few friends outside of swimming to do other stuff. Like, for example, I joined a which ties into my entrepreneurship minor of forming a kind of a startup that helped people translate documents, for example. Like that was what we did. And that was like way outside of swimming. And I was really glad I managed to do that during my sophomore year. I don't know. It was okay. I didn't feel like I was missing out that much. Maybe because my friends were just like really cool, and we still partied like once a week. We
Okay,
had a
wait, this is
rule.
good.
Yeah, we had a rule that you can't drink 24 hours before your practice. So
Okay.
the only day possible for us to like, let's say, drink or go out is Saturday night.
I almost feel like that rule makes all the swimmers want to drink on Saturday night then.
Yeah, and go crazy.
But you're right, because like, I think being on the swim team itself, you have built-in friends, and I think you and Siobhan are still, like, really close now too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I heard that because you were in school during COVID, you still had to train for or you still wanted to train for the Olympics,
yeah.
that you and Siobhan did some crazy things to stay in shape.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we just graduated, so luckily we walked the graduation, but we stayed another year to train. And during lockdown, we bought this wetsuit off of Amazon, you know, like, I think it's a used wetsuit, not even
Wait,
that
a
thick.
used wetsuit? Jamie,
I'm not
why'd you buy
sure.
a used wetsuit? You're training for the
Because
Olympics.
the real ones are crazy expensive, girl. I think. I don't really remember, but it worked out. It fit. And we went to our nearby lake. So mind that we live in Michigan, which is like one of the most like north, like Midwest cold, freezing
Freezing.
tundra states. Um, and it was April. Still okay. It was okay. And we went to the lake to swim, I think 3, 4 times during that period. And I remember the first time we were so cold, we were in there for maybe 7 minutes. That was an experience that I'll forever remember, right? Because it was just it
I
was just
can't believe you
crazy.
went like 4 times. After the first time, I'd be like, that was a stupid idea. I can't go back in there. So brave.
Yeah, I mean, we had to try anything to keep our bodies going outside of like YouTube um, fitness videos.
Oh, because you have to do like weights and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, like we went to the park and did some pull-ups. We went to the pool to steal some dumbbells just to keep our muscles going. I mean, people got really, really creative during COVID, and like despite everything that happened, which was really, really devastating for a lot of people, it still opened up this like little opportunity for all of us to be creative and try to seek out any resources we have to stay in shape.
Were there other creative or crazy things that you did to prepare?
I wouldn't say myself, like, it wasn't crazy, right? Like, we tried to do some running and some park, workouts and swimming, but one of my teammates wore a firefighter, like, clothing and mask and did a rowing machine practice to, like, make it that much harder. Yeah.
Where did he or she get that?
I don't know. I don't know where he got it, but that was crazy, and yeah, I mean, props to him, but
That's commitment. That is commitment. So I kind of want to go back now to the moment that you found out you qualified, or just like the event you swam, and then where were you? What did it feel like? I want to hear the whole story.
yeah, of course. That was probably one of my happiest days of my life. But it was like the end of the qualifying season for the Olympics, like really the last possible chance. And I was doing the relay on my home turf in Victoria Park swimming pool. Yes, and
I've been
actually,
there.
yeah, yeah, oh my God. And my other three teammates already like unofficially qualified because of other relays or their individual events, including Siobhan. And so I was the only one who was really like, okay, like this is it, all in or nothing. And I just remember being there, like surrounded by like our people, like the coaches that seen me train or compete since I was young. And I think my parents almost made it. They were like stuck in traffic or something, but at least they saw it live. I think my dad was there. I'm not sure.
Wait,
But in my
they missed it?
they
Oh
didn't I forgot, but they didn't actually miss it, but I think they were there somewhere maybe. But
no.
anyway, I was
Okay, you
still
felt them.
like I still felt them, like I know they were there watching. And the whole crowd, I mean, it was like a short break from like COVID lockdown. It was like so lucky that we even had a competition, you know? And so the four of us got together. We all trained kind of like some of us together, some of us separately, but we came together, and for myself at least, I delivered the best swim that I can give at that moment. And when my friend touched the wall and we knew what time we had to go in order to be top 16 in the world, I just like jumped up and like screamed and everything. And so it was so memorable. And honestly, it was even better than the actual Olympic swim itself. I know you're gonna ask later, but I was just so proud, and like I was so happy I contributed to this team event and got ourselves a spot at the Olympics.
I can't even imagine what that's like, but I feel like it was probably really memorable because was it the record that you broke like 10 years old?
Yes.
And you yeah,
Yes.
I think that being in your home turf with your parents there, I feel like all of those things, swimming with your friends for the first time against, like, the pandemic, it was probably just such a high in life. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, and having
Yeah.
your name there. Is the
Definitely.
record still there then?
No, they actually broke it last year at Asian Games by 0.01, but
Oh,
it's okay. It's all
hate it
good.
when that
Records are meant to be
happens.
broken.
Yeah, I mean, but now you are a part of history, and I think that's super cool.
Thank you.
Did your parents ever I don't know, do they tell you they're proud a lot? Did they were they like, "Jamie, I'm so"
Nowadays, yeah, yeah. Yeah, they do, like, but, like, in a Chinese way sometimes, you know?
No, I get it, I get it. It's like when they don't say I love you, but they're like,
Yeah, and
"Take
they
care of yourself."
buy you a dress.
Yeah, be healthy. I don't know. Okay, so
Yeah,
you
so
qualified for the Olympics. You're top 16 now. How did you prepare for the Olympics? Like your training schedule, your diet?
yeah, I mean, training-wise, it was still kind of the same from college.
So like
Um,
6 days out of the 7,
yes.
and then you swam for, I'm guessing, like 2 hours?
Yeah, so we swam each practice was at least around 2 hours, and then apart from the 10 swimming sessions, we had 3 1.5-hour lifting sessions. Um, and
Wait, why do
I
you have 10
haven't
swimming
yeah.
2 times a day?
Yes. Yeah,
Right.
well, 2 times a day other than 2 days.
Okay.
Um, 3 lifting sessions, 1.5 hour each. And usually before swimming practice, we come early to do core, to stretch, you know, like, so it's a whole ordeal, just kind of like a full, I mean, not kind of, I was a full-time athlete,
You're
devoting
that's your
around,
full-time job.
yeah, devoting around 25 hours per week to it. Um, and I was also doing a master's then, actually remotely,
Oh my gosh.
um, which again goes back to the first question, like being kind of balanced and practical. Like, who knows if I'm gonna make it or not? I need a degree, and I need another degree.
But you're doing it all. Like, here I am going to just get a bachelor's in economics, but you're like, "No, I'm going to go to the Olympics, and I'm gonna get a bachelor's, and I'm gonna get a master's, and I'm gonna drink with my friends, and I'm gonna" I don't know. That's crazy. I think that's so much to balance. I definitely would burn out.
I mean, to be fair, like, let's in hindsight, like, I don't know if I didn't do masters, maybe I would have swam even better, you know, like, I'm sure I would get more rest, etc. But as I said, it was like very practical, and always having this backup plan in mind that is kind of how I was brought up. So
Which I think is really interesting, Jamie, that like even though you qualified for the Olympics and you know you're going to the Olympics, you still at the entire time had like a backup plan as if, your dream seems really impossible.
I mean, I did only make it until the very last moment. So like I had 2 years to qualify for the Olympics, 2, 3 years because of COVID, it pushed back 1 year. And I qualified 2021 end of May. So it was only 2 months prior to the Olympics. And so I didn't know if I was going to make it all the way when I was doing my masters that year remotely. So that gives a little perspective of
Oh.
why like okay.
So that's kind of because you didn't know that you were going to make it to the Olympics. That's why you decided during COVID to get your master's.
Well, part of it, yeah, and
Okay.
part of it also, I knew I would needed to do something else after even if I did go to the Olympics, I would probably retire from swimming after that, and I need to go into the society, and most companies would ask, "Oh, what do you do the past 3 years?" "Oh, nothing," like, so I guess I was also preparing for the future at the same time, having a balance between just focusing on swimming, but also, like, keeping my mind balanced, and that's why I did the masters.
Did you ever find that exhausting to just like constantly be preparing yourself for the what if like you don't make it or like what it yeah.
Yeah, it's quite exhausting, to be honest. I think it's still being, like, from where I'm from, like, from my parents' mindset, from the society mindset. I'm kind of trapped in that being, and I think now it's a bit better as in I'm more like, okay, let's go with the flow and just do my best and see what happens. But back then, it feels like a lot of us, there was a high stake in my situation. And if I didn't make it, it would be terrible. But okay, at least I have a master's. It was, yeah, it was exhausting.
I know I completely get how you feel. I also have an obsessive personality. My dream isn't like to go to the Olympics, but it's to um I don't know, like make something more of myself or, like I want this podcast to become something really great and cool and highlighting cool people's stories. Um, but when I think about something that I want, I can't stop thinking about it. I'm like, how do I get there? And then every failure, obstacle that I come, I'm like, maybe it's a sign, but then I still keep going. And maybe it's stupid, maybe it's delusional, but I do think that the obsessive personality is what's like, I can't see a different path than just the one that I want to go down.
Well, I don't think that's a necessarily bad thing, right? Like,
No.
yeah, I mean, I admire people who are like that.
Thank you. But I do understand that. I okay, so I kind of want to go back into the Olympics. The reason why I asked you about your diet because when I was younger, I was reading about Michael Phelps and how he prepared for the Olympics. And he ate 8,000 to 10,000 calories a day, which like just to put that into context for the audience, it's I did some research. It's 125 eggs, 72 pounds of watermelon, 95 bananas, 67 grande sized matcha lattes with almond milk, or 9 pints of Ben and Jerry's ice cream, which is like the grocery sized cartons. So basically, a lot of food. And I'm always so curious, is that just Michael Phelps, or did you do something like that too?
Oh my god, that's extreme, like, I
Yeah.
can't imagine, like, I don't can't even afford that to, like
Yeah, you're
wow,
right. That's a good point. In today's economy too, you're right.
eggs? Oh my
125
god.
eggs would be like $125,000.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, but no, good point, like, diet-wise, I was always trying to push myself to eat more and to have enough input versus what I've output that day because it's just we just work so much to our like, with our body, um, but I didn't have, like, a certain diet I had to follow, I just had to, like, really force myself to eat protein, eat carbs, of course, with a balanced diet, and we had a canteen where I was staying at that year during COVID, training for Olympics, and they had like nutritional labels on the food that they were providing. But to be honest, we never paid attention to that because we just needed to eat as much as we could.
If you're not keeping track of, what you're eating, how do you know, like, you need to eat more?
I guess we did keep track of our weight, and we
Oh.
had regular blood tests to test out our cortisol levels or iron levels, for example, for especially for female. Um, and that's kind of like the indication of, oh, also like, okay, amount of body fat you have, etc. So we have these tests that gave us an idea and data on how our body is doing. And also sometimes I just get hungry. Like, yeah.
Did you ever see food then as just, like, fuel versus enjoyment? Like, could you eat 10 ice cream bars a day?
No, I cannot. I love eating, I love food. I'm a foodie. I don't know, like, whatever that represents. I love cooking. I mean, we didn't have a chance to cook, but, like, now like, all my life, I just loved food, so luckily, I didn't see it as a chore or, like, something just I had to do. But there are times where you're like, "Oh, I'm not that hungry," but no, you have to eat. Then that becomes a bit like, "Okay."
I'm curious, so I was gonna ask this later, but I feel like it's a really interesting way or point to ask it now. Um, have you ever, like, eaten in front of somebody that wasn't a swimmer or wasn't an athlete, but you were trained for the Olympics and you had to eat like a crazy person?
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, during the preparation, we didn't really go out to eat just because it was still COVID in Hong Kong. Um, but even before, like during college or even now, I still have this big appetite compared to maybe my other girlfriends that don't eat as much. And I never really felt too conscious about it, but that's definitely something I noticed.
Did your friends ever like, did you guys ever talk about it, or do you know anyone that was? Or even, like, I feel like being a female athlete, sometimes it doesn't always match the definition of what society thinks is beautiful, right? Or, like, at least when I was a swimmer, I had really broad shoulders, and, like, feel like sometimes that could come off as intimidating to men probably, or I'm sure if you ate more and you could lift more than some guys, they would probably be insecure or intimidated by that. Have you ever heard of, like, stories or from your friends or even yourself where you felt that way?
Yeah, I mean, even it started in high school. Um, when I was like before college, I would train with boys and sometimes I would beat them. And they don't, of course, they don't say it out loud, but there is a sense of insecurity or jealousy there that I felt. And then moving into college, definitely I have friends that experienced more so from non-athletic guys that sometimes make comments on, oh, first of all, like even just like you know how swimmers we put a bun on our hair because it's wet, and they would say, "Oh, it's like an ugly swimmer bun," or
What? I do that.
I know it's beautiful, whatever. Or definitely body shape, and it's really sad because it's not just with other peers that are our age, like the guys that we train with, or the students, boy students in general, but even at some point our coaches were really looking into our body shape and making comments to some of my teammates who, let's say, weren't the ideal swimmer body shape, which made my friends felt very sad and very, very insecure, and ultimately could lead to more serious issues, which sadly, like one of them did. Um, and that's something that is not okay. Like you wouldn't really address that. I didn't really see them address that to the male swimmers. I hope that has changed now, but that was something I luckily didn't experience when I was in college, but definitely saw my teammates go through that.
What made the coaches comment on their bodies? Like they're just fueling it to be the athlete that they need to be, right? Like that's literally the coach's job to help them. That's it.
Exactly, exactly, and as you know, like, a swimmer body can be any type. You shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Everyone needs different things to swim fast, and so I don't know why they were so certain of, like, we should look a certain way, and only, "Oh, a certain way is, oh, good job," you know? I hope that environment has changed now for the current swimmers, but that was something that was just hard to see, and when I was there, I didn't know that I had the voice or didn't really know how to stand up for my friends yet, or didn't know how to really convey that this is wrong.
Yeah. I think it's really tough because you're dedicating your whole life to this sport and your entire body is dedicated or like sacrificed for the sport. But at the same time, I think just being a woman in society, you're held to different like beauty standards and things like that. So when they contradict each other, it's like, what do you do? Do you do that just to fit in, or do you do that to like, do you do something else to change your body so that you can pursue your dreams? And swimming is like one of the sports where I think body shape is really different, but like because of how much you're training, you'll always have certain features, like maybe like broader shoulders or something like that.
Yeah, I think it all starts with education, probably, like, probably in high school or even middle school when we start to mature, adolescent, that there should be some kind of information for everyone out there, not just female, but male as well, that you got to appreciate, like, that your body's changing and work with it and listen to it. And I know, like, there are so many, like, beauty standards or, like, whatever how a female should look like out there, like Instagram where people edits or even just the whole plastic surgery scene or whatever. And that's even going like far away from sports, right? But there's just a standard out there that is really unhealthy. And to really tackle it, I really hope like in the future, like schools can really teach girls that or guys that how to really work with your body and be okay with it and how to have the mindset that even if someone is commenting on it, it's just that because they don't have that education and like maybe a different perspective. And I think that's also why, like, I know I'm like jumping into this charity called Mind the Waves that me and my two swimmates co-founded. But one of the topics that come up to us a lot is body shape. How do we embrace how we look, who we are, and be confident in our own skin? So yeah, it's definitely something that I've learned over the years to be more confident about and help others hopefully to understand that as well.
I love that. I think it's really important, and I love that you co-founded Mindwave with two other Olympian swimmers who also know what it's like. And I really love that it's in Hong Kong because I do think that the other layer of education is culture. Like in Asian culture, everybody knows like what their this universal standard of beauty is, right? Like you have to look very pale, like a pearl, and you have to be very slim, and you have to like really take care of your body, whatever it is. But I think slim is the most important. So, especially being an athlete, a female athlete in Asia, if you look any different than that, like that is really shamed upon. And I feel like in Asian culture, people are very open. They're not like, oh, maybe you should go to the gym a little more. It's like, hey, you got fat, like lose
Yeah.
20
Yeah.
pounds. Um,
100%.
so I think it's huge that you're starting a mental health charity in Hong Kong to kind of combat that.
Yeah, no. I mean, we started this whole Mind the Waves at the end of the Olympics, which I can touch upon later. But at this stage, like I'm in the background, mostly just because I'm in Switzerland and I can't really do the on-site things. But my two co-founders, Camille and Stephanie, they're doing so much great work with our ambassadors, like helping the next generation to be leaders and to be mental health advocates. And they also work with different organizations to amplify um, the voice of how important it is for us to have a good mental health, how to teach girls, teach schools to have this curriculum. And they're doing, I have to give so much credit to them because they're doing amazing. While I'm really just like, I co founded, but isn't really on the front line of things anymore. Uh, but definitely, like, I really hope, especially in Hong Kong, through Mind the Waves, it can slowly break down the stigma of talking about these, like, let's say, taboo subjects, and hopefully more people in the community would be able to benefit from our work.
I love that. And we kind of touched even just on like being a woman in sports. So maybe we can go into that a little bit more. Do you feel like female athletes are perceived differently than male athletes?
In some ways, definitely. Like, I don't know if you remember, like Nike's. There was a Nike ad that had different scenes of women being like, oh, if you're too strong, they call you crazy. If you're emotional, they call you whatever. Like, or if you cry, they call you emotional. Um, and that's one part. And then of course there's the disparity of like the salary for a male versus female professional athlete. And so being a woman in sport, yes, there are challenges, but I feel like I've never felt more opportunistic and like excited about the female in sports in the coming few years because the space is changing, because more people are investing more in women's sports, more people are coming out and being advocates and speaking out, being leaders in this space. And that also sparks, like, it kind of connects with what I do now, even though I do marketing for World Aquatics. Um, but I get to work with some brands who are open to the idea of investing in young girls in sports or women in sports, or working with programs where support women in administration. And so um, having this opportunity now and being like having the experience that I had, I think it's just really cool to be in this space. And hopefully this can help, like what the whole culture is doing can help more girls to be more confident when they do sports in general.
I guess I'm trying to understand what was the space like before, and then where do you think that it's going now?
Before, mostly in swimming itself, I wouldn't say it's more like male dominated, but I would say before, kind of the commercial space was more male dominated,
Yeah.
I would say. Like when I was competing, um, most of the maybe like more ads we see are with male athletes, or the top earners in sports were male dominant athletes, whether in tennis, soccer, basketball, or whatever. Um, in the sport itself, I didn't feel too like gender biased, or I didn't feel like discriminated because I was a girl. And maybe because like Hong Kong, like girls were stronger, in swimming. And in college, when I was in those few years, we were a stronger team than the guys for a few years. So that played a role in that. Yeah. I mean, the guys were a little bit like, oh, the girls are coming up and like yeah, and they start to respect you guys more as well, because you guys are stronger. So when I was there, it was more so like observing what was happening outside. And then now being in the space of like sports and entertainment, then I see what the programs are starting to become, what more we can do in the space for female athletes. And that's where I see the main difference.
Okay. That kind of reminds me when you're like, oh, sometimes women swimming was better than men's at school. It kinda reminds me of this thing I've been hearing a lot, the Caitlin Clark effect. Do you know who Caitlin
Mm.
Clark is?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, she's I mean, I will say, like, I didn't know until recently, but she's really cool, like, she is a WNBA player, and some of her games in college, I guess, were viewed more than the men's games,
Yeah.
and she's really helped, like, her college town, or her college state economy, but my one thing about that is, like, I feel like women always have to be exceptional to be recognized. But for men, it could be a team that's recognized. It doesn't always have to be that one person. There are key players, there are really famous men athletes, male athletes that we know, but it could just more so it could be the entire team versus women. It's always an individual. Do you feel like that's true?
In some sports, perhaps, because, for example, Caitlin Clark with basketball itself, I think it was just the hype around like men basketball is more fast paced, it's more exciting, they have more bigger names that people are more attracted to the NBA versus the WNBA, or even in college, like men's basketball was way more exciting than the women's basketball team. And so for sure. And in terms of like individual versus a team, in swimming, it's not so much just because we are an individual sport dominant field, but I think it's an interesting question because I'm not super sure. I'm not sure how I feel about the distinction, but definitely I think it depends on the sport. And I think nowadays I agree with you that yeah, like women have to be like exceptional in order to be recognized. And hopefully this person kind of opens the door. Caitlin opens the door for more female athletes to be recognized. You know, it doesn't have to be like the highest level. Oh, she's the Steph Curry of basketball. You know, for female basketball. Like, no, there's so many other people that are equally good, and maybe it's sad to sound that you need this one person to open up the door for the rest, but maybe that's the way it is now. Hopefully, that will change in the future.
Yeah, and I also hope, like, other people will then be like, "Oh, he is the Caitlin Clark of whatever," versus
Exactly.
the other way around.
Yeah, yeah.
What's one thing you think you've learned or what's one thing you've learned just being a woman, but in a more male-dominated space? Not in swimming, but sports in general.
I thought about this a lot when I saw the question, and I think ultimately it is that women, I think, sometimes feel a little bit more, and we have an advantage, maybe in our emotions or in the connection that is a bit different than how men think. And I think it's to capitalize on that and really be confident on your rationale, you know, because you're emotional or because you have that connection, you can have a different perspective on um, as the same project, for example. And that is one thing that I'm trying to capitalize on, and just trying to be like confident and not being afraid to make mistakes, but also just yeah, trying to make it trying to make it work with what I think is right.
I love that. I think emotional intelligence is really important, even when you're doing business, like reading the room, understanding what people want and what people are saying and how they're feeling is really like an important thing to carry out. So I think being a woman in that area, like we do have an advantage. Like while my people say that we are too emotional, I don't think that some
Yeah.
people are emotional enough.
Exactly. I mean, that usually goes a long way because emotion links to human connection, and ultimately that's what all it's about. It's about like being human and understanding what other people are feeling and wanting.
Exactly. Okay, so we never got a chance to talk about your the 4 by 100 medley race in the Olympics and
Yeah.
what that was like. I want to hear the whole story.
Oh my gosh. So the race itself was actually a blur. And going back, like I was already there for almost 2 weeks. I was there for like 10 days. I've gone through the emotional roller coaster of seeing one of my best friends, Siobhan, winning medal, first time ever for a Hong Kong female swimmer. I went to the opening ceremony, that was like the highlight. And then I was just waiting for my race, kind of training every day and then cheering for my teammates. And that itself was kind of exhausting in the hindsight. But that being said, the day of the race, it was such a blur because it went by so quickly. I remember talking to my coach one last time during warm up. My college coach came, um, and he was with us, and that was really cool. And the race itself, I have come to terms with it now that I swam decently. It wasn't the best swim I've ever had, and I was definitely not happy with it for a long time. Um, but that being said, it was still a very unique experience, despite no audience, but just like walking out, diving into the Olympic pool, and being able to say I'm an Olympian, that's super special. However, I have to highlight this might sound really sad, but after the race, I cried for hours.
Jamie, what?
Hours. Yeah, I know.
Why?
It was a bittersweet moment, partly because I was not happy with my own race. I was beating myself up. Um, and I tried to talk to my parents on the phone, but I guess they were also a bit disappointed at that moment, which didn't really help. And ultimately, I think I was really sad because I knew that was my last international race representing Hong Kong ever. Like in the back of my mind, I just knew that, even though I didn't really tell anyone yet. And it was kind of like an end of an era. Uh, and it was all those like expectations into performance and all the things that I've gone through that's really broke me at the end. And that evening, after like crying and whatever, we some of us, me, Camille, and Steph, happened to be just like walking around the village, being sad, but also just talking it out. And that's when kind of we came together and thought about what was the issue, like why are we so sad? Because we were sad for different reasons, but all of them came back to our mindset and our mental health. And that's when we knew we had to do something, whatever it looked like. And that was kind of like the spark, at least for me. I know they talked about it maybe in different ways before, but for me, that was the moment when we knew we needed to do something in the mental health space. So crying helps.
No, I was gonna say everything happens for a reason. Like I want to go back to the whole crying and everything, but that's crazy that you went from an end of a chapter to finding your purpose and starting a new chapter just by having a conversation with your teammates and being sad. Like, I don't know, fate, the universe, whatever it is, like you're talking about it and then boom, you can start Mind the Wave right after that.
Yeah, I mean, the process of actually forming Mind the Waves took almost half a year. And as you said, like, yeah, I finished one of my like long-term career, long chapter in one night. And I didn't immediately bounce back the next day for sure. I was in the trance or I was trying to find my new identity for the next few months, honestly. It took me months to be okay. Um, and I still went to some swim practice because I couldn't remove myself entirely. But it took me forever to really be okay with my new chapter, to be okay with who I am and finding my new purpose. It took 6 months almost.
That's honestly pretty fast, I feel like. I'm still trying to find my one purpose, my first purpose.
No, I wouldn't say 6 months, like a year. I actually had a job like right after the Olympics. I worked at EY as a consultant for a year and a half. And for that whole time, I would say I was trying to think, okay, like this is, I need to find something else that really motivates me, and that I'm happy about. And that's how I came to Switzerland for this job. But look, like that whole period from finishing the Olympics to being really happy with what I'm doing and having a new goal, or a sense of purpose in life took a long time.
What was that transition like? Like, how do you go from reaching a peak in one world, which is the Olympics, to being like, okay, I gotta go into normal life and work a corporate job now?
Yeah, as a fresh grad.
Okay, yeah. And also all your college friends and your high school friends have already been in the corporate world for so long.
It was definitely a shock, and only time can help me figure out what I wanted to do or how to manage this new chapter. Because I had some people like from before who transitioned earlier than me that tell me that, yeah, it's really hard. You can try this, but not until you are in it, you wouldn't realize how it really feels like. And it's definitely it immediately humbles you another 10 levels again. You know, you're like that freshie in that company, um, trying to do new things and being surrounded by people who not necessarily maybe appreciates your background, but they haven't experienced your last chapter or are into sports in general. So you have to adapt to that and realize that maybe not everyone would understand how you feel, and that's okay. You just got to find your new group of people and try to take your time to feel okay about it.
That's really difficult, I feel like, and going from a life where you had a lot of like attention, training from your coaches, from your teammates, and you're on a world stage, everyone's watching you, to now being just like an employee in a corporation and you're like, "Hi, I'm Jamie, I'm trying to learn." I can't wrap my head around that. I don't know what I would do.
No, and and that's why, like, after a year, I mean, I did learn a lot at UI the first year, but I knew I wanted to do something else that might be closer to my passion, which is ultimately sports still at this stage. And so that's why I looked at different opportunities. And Switzerland, where I am, it's the place where a lot of international sports federations are. Like the International Olympic Committee is here, and so there was an opening at World Aquatics, which is even my sport, which was coincident. Like oh my god, I have to go for it. It was an internship program, no guarantees of what would happen after, but I still knew I needed to try and see if I can stay there. And I was really lucky. Everything worked out really well, and I really find purpose in my job. And yeah, it takes time to just really know that you need to make a change, I guess. It's okay if the first time you try something or the first move after a big chapter is wrong or not for you, I guess. If you don't try it out, you don't know if it's for you or not. So I'm still like happy that I been through the corporate job first before, oh, knowing that I need to change.
Did you just find World of the internship for World of Aquatics on LinkedIn
They posted it on Instagram.
and you just applied on
Yeah, I did.
Instagram and
Yeah, like yeah.
started as an intern,
Mhm.
as an Olympian? They weren't like, "Oh, here's an Olympian that applied." Like, for sure she has to have a full-time position in swimming.
No, this is a good initiative that our development program, a department put in, is that we have an athlete internship, which is really meant for people from the field, from the professional life, or have done sports their whole life, no matter what level, to transition into the real world. And
Okay.
so, like, having these kind of initiatives really help people like me or my friends who were training their whole lives to kind of step into the real world slowly, but also still within their passion.
Do you think that achieving something that most people only dream of, like the Olympics, has changed the way that you set goals?
Um, not really. I mean, I'm still like the same girl who's like, "Oh, I didn't really know I can make the Olympics till I was like really old, you know? I just want to do things step by step." I mean, I do have big goals in life and sometimes they change from time to time, but I'm still taking everything like step by step at the moment. And I do have the medium long term goals, but I'm just trying to like really enjoy and do well in my everyday life. I still really push myself really hard sometimes, in good or bad ways. I'm not sure. I think it's the mentality that carries over, but less so like the goal setting.
Olympians, they're just like us. Like,
They're just
what?
human. They're just human.
Okay, before we end on a fun question, I really have to know though, like, what was the Olympic Village scene like? Like, I'm sure. Okay, for UCLA, everybody is young, like walking around campus, everyone looks like a goddess if they're an Olympian, and like everyone's young. Now you're in a village all together. There's nobody else in Tokyo because COVID. Did you download Hinge?
Oh my
Bumble?
god. Oh my god, I wish I had, but I was I was in a relationship back then, so I didn't download Hinge,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Fair, fair,
Um,
fair.
but that being said, like it was just such a cool environment because you're surrounded by like the top of the top from every sport, and you might be having lunch next to a world record holder, and everyone is so humble about it, and that's the cool thing about it, you know, because we just treat all each other with respect and think that this is just another party, you know, like in another place, but just a concentration of really, really great athletic people. Um, I know you want to hear about the sex scene, but unfortunately, I didn't even see any like condoms around. Like usually they give out like souvenir
What?
condoms that is branded. It's at every like big international event, but I didn't get it. I think it was like not sold out. It was like out of stock very very
Right.
early on.
They were making face masks instead.
Yeah, yes, with SK2. I don't know. But I think one thing that was really interesting was like the beds. They were cardboard beds. And while it was very environmentally friendly, I didn't think it was like the most supportive. But that being said, there were like videos of people like jumping on it to see if it would break. And on the last day, we definitely were like just jumping on the beds, and it was okay. But that gives you a perspective of like some people were like, oh, is it even safe or supportive when you have sex on it, you know? So
Thank you
that
for
was super
proving
fun.
that. So it was stable. It was
Yes, it
stable.
was
Like even
stable.
Oh. Well, also I read that like the food there isn't that good. Is that true?
Actually, I think the Tokyo Olympic food was the best food that I've had at any international events. And you're right, usually into the international races, like the food is so-so, but because it was Japan, they had a main canteen with international food for the majority of people. You can see every option that you wanted, even like halal or vegetarian or gluten free, you know? And then there was another smaller canteen that was only Japanese. And every few days, they would change the menu that represented different province of Japan. And it was the best food I've ever had. And maybe I ate too much, and that's why I didn't swim that fast. But that's okay.
That sounds like a hotel experience, like a high-end hotel experience. They're changing the menus, there's food from different countries.
Yeah, like that was definitely one of the highlights. But I think overall, like because it was during COVID, we were stuck in the village the whole time. Whereas I heard like at other Olympics, people can go outside, go visit the city, you know. Um, we definitely made the most out of it with some indoor parties on the lawn or something on the last day of the competition. Definitely saw Team USA celebrating. And we also had to like get tested every day. Like we had there was just like a routine to follow. Yeah, I think food was definitely the highlight, the bed. Sad that I didn't have any like souvenir condoms, but I bought a lot of other souvenirs. So it was cool.
I know we're like way over time, so I want to ask you one question. If you didn't go to the Olympics for swimming, what would you go to the Olympics for, do you think?
I really always wanted to be on the basketball team, and
Really?
yeah, yeah,
Why?
for sure. I don't know, I just love basketball, and I love playing with a group of like, a team. I think that's really fun, so maybe in another life.
I think that's a really good one. Um, I think as a swimmer, we probably always want to have like a team, like do something where it's like you win together and not just by yourself. So
Yeah.
I said that I would do the gymnastics team because I feel like those girls are always built-in best friends. And
Yeah,
it's the same thing. It's just like you win as a team and you celebrate as a team.
100%. I thought about gymnastics.
Really? Okay, I think it's a little
Yeah.
bit more generic because it's so broadcasted. My boyfriend said that I should do, if I could qualify for the Olympics, I should do curling. I've never even heard of curling until he showed me a video, and it looks like those robot vacuums that are like crawling on the floor.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you staying up, taking the time to talk to me. I love your story. Like, I think it's really fun. And honestly, the fact that you're able to just keep going and reinventing yourself has been really inspiring.
Thank you, Janice. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to be on here, and you're doing a great job with everything, so it's definitely an honor.